In the part 1 of 6th module, we have started with the cache memories. We have seen different terminologies related to the cache memories, and we have started with the different types of mapping, and we have seen the direct map cache in part 1. So what you have seen in direct map cache memory was that a particular set is going to have a single block. Okay, now we will see the remaining two kinds of mapping methods, the n-way set associative as well as fully associative cache memories. Now we will see the n-way set associative cache. It is also known as multi-way set associative cache. So one of the disadvantages of the direct map cache was the conflicts. Since a particular set contains only a single block, so if you are using the memories mapped to that particular set again and again, and that may lead to a conflict, and that conflict is much more in the direct map cache. So in order to avoid the conflicts, we will prefer n-way or multi-way set associative cache. Okay, now this n can be 1. If this n value is 1, what it means is that it is direct map cache. Okay, if you having n as 2, means you are in a particular set you can have 2 blocks. If n is 3, it means that in a particular set you can have 3 blocks. If n is 4, what it means is that in a particular set can have 4 blocks. So if n is 1, a particular set can have only one block, which is same as direct map cache. Now in general you can say it as multi-way set associative or n-way set associative. Now in this case also each memory address still maps to a specific set. Now a particular memory location in your main memory can only map to a particular set, as we have seen for the direct map cache. But the advantage over here is that in a set you can have more number of blocks. So this data can go to any one of the blocks, such that you can load more number of blocks into the same set. By that you can reduce the conflicts. Okay, so n is also known as the degree of associativity of the cache. Now we will see in detail with the help of the diagram. Okay, now this is a multi-way set associative, the another name for n-way set associative. Here you are taking n as 2. In this example you are taking n as 2. C, the capacity of the cache is 8 words. So the maximum you can have 8 words in your cache. N is taken as 2. So in a set you can have 2 words or 2 blocks. Okay, so right now you can say that in a particular set you can have 2 blocks. So the maximum number of sets possible over here is 4. So there are 4 sets, and in each set you are having 2 blocks, so altogether 8 blocks or 8 words. Okay, now the memory address, coming to the left side, the top, the memory address given by the processor. Okay, the last 2 bits, the LSB bits, are 2 zeros, the byte offset. Since it is a word address, the last 2 bits will be always 0. And as I said that in this example you are going to have 4 sets: set 0, set 1, set 2 and set 3. So in order to represent these 4 sets you need to have 2 bits. So the set is having 2 bits, and the tag is of size 28 bits. Okay, so in the previous example of the direct map, the tag was of size 27 bits. Right now the tag is of size 28 bits. Okay, now in this example, a particular set, if you take set 0, any set in this particular case, you are going to have 2 blocks. So there are 2 ways. You will call it in another name. It is having 2 ways. Either the data can be loaded in way 0 or in way 1. Okay, now in this method there are 2 ways. So when the processor is going to read or write anything to the memory, this data will be brought to the cache. Either it will be a cache hit or cache miss, whatever it might be. So the corresponding data can be either loaded to way 0 or way 1. Okay, now let's see how this particular concept works, whether it is a hit or a miss. Now, based on the when a processor gives a memory address based on the set value, here it is a 2-bit set value, it will map to either set 0 or set 1 or set 2 or set 3. So in this example, the set is being mapped to set 2. Okay, so you are going to check the data in set 2. The first condition is that whether the data is a valid data, so it will check for the V bit, the valid bit. Okay, and now the data may be either in way 0 of the set 2 or way 1 of the set 2. Okay, now you can see two AND gates. Okay, and this two AND gates is having output hit 1 or hit 0, and one of the input to the AND gate is the valid bit. So only if the particular data is valid, you are going to have a hit. Otherwise, if it is not a legal or a valid bit, a valid data, hit will be normally 0, means that is a miss. Okay, now if the data is a valid bit, suppose, now you are going to take the tag value from the memory address, and it will check with the way 1 tag value or way 0 tag value. Okay, now either the data will be present in way 0 or in way 1. So any one of the equality comparator, either coming from way 1 or way 0, will be equated. It will give a 1. So either from the first equality comparator or the second equality comparator, you will be having a 1. So if the valid bits are 1, any one of the AND gate, if the data is present in way 0, the hit 0 AND gate will give you a 1. If data is present in way 1, the hit 1 AND gate will give you a 1, and this is given to an OR gate. So if data is present in way 0, or if the data is present in way 1, if any one of the case, will be having a 1 as input to the OR gate, and the hit value will be 1. Okay, now if it is a hit, okay, the hit might be either from hit 1 or hit 0. Okay, and you can see that if you are going to take the data, so in order to take the data, you are having a multiplexer, and this multiplexer input is having the control signal as hit 1, which means that if the data is present in way 1, hit 1 will be definitely 1. So hit 1 is 1. In that case, the multiplexer input 1 will be active. So from way 1 you will be taking the data. Otherwise, if the data is present in way 0, this hit 1 control signal value will be 0. So in that case, the data will be taken from way 0. So this is this particular concept of multi-way n-way will reduce the conflict, but this process is slower and expensive. Why? Because you want to have a multiplexer and more circuitry compared to direct mapping. Now coming to fully associative cache. Now in the case of fully associative cache, you are having a single set, okay, and you are having B ways, which means where B is the number of blocks. So a single set with B ways, where B is the number of blocks. So the memory address can map to a block in any one of the B ways. So we can say that a fully associative cache is then another name for B-way set associative cache. Okay, so where B is the maximum number of blocks. So if you take a n-way associative, if n is 1, you can call the n-way associative as direct mapping. If this n value is B, you can call it as fully associative cache. Now this is the diagram. We are not going to show you the entire diagram. Here you can see that you are taking the same example of a cache memory which is having 8 blocks or 8 word size. So in fully associative you are having a single set, and in the single set is being divided into 8 blocks. Okay, so starting with way 0, way 1 till way 7. Okay, now as you can see, you are having 8 ways. So in order to select the data from the 8 ways, you need to have an 8:1 multiplexer. Okay, so that, and you need to have some extra circuitry, so the circuit becomes a bit complex, but the conflicts will be very minimum in this particular case. Okay, but the disadvantage is that the hardware components will be more. We need to have additional tag comparisons. Okay, now till now what we have seen is that whatever example I have shown you, the block size was taken as one word. Okay, so in a block you are going to have one word. Okay, and this is good when we are going to take the advantage of the temporal locality. So what it means by temporal locality is that the instructions that are used very recently are supposed to be used again and again. So in that case, if the block size is 1, or if the block size is one word, that will be helpful. Okay, so in a block, this block is set as one word of data, and this is good if you are using the advantage of temporal locality. Now if you are using the advantage of spatial locality, what it means by spatial locality is that if you are taking a data, there is a chance that the nearby data also will be taken soon. So that's what it means by spatial locality. So if you are going to use the advantage of the spatial locality, you need to increase the block size. So what it means that in a block you will be having more number of words. Okay, so the examples that we have seen till now, you are taking the block size as one word. Now we are going to see another option in which you are having more words inside the same block. Okay, and that is being used if you want to have the advantage of spatial locality. Okay, so what is the advantage of this block size greater than 1? Okay, so if a miss happens, okay, if a miss happens, what you are going to do is that we are going to take the word from the memory and you are going to load it into the cache. Okay, so if the block size is more than 1, along with the word you will be taking a block of words or n number of words from the memory. So the adjacent words also will be fetched along with that. So there is, and in this case, if you are going to have the advantage of spatial locality, the nearby words also are being copied to the cache, so that may improve or that will decrease the miss rate. So if a large block size, that means that if the block contains more number of words, what it means is that a fixed size cache will be having fewer blocks. So if the block size is big, then the number of sets will definitely get reduced. Okay, since the number of sets gets reduced or number of blocks gets reduced, this may lead to more conflict and that will increase the miss rate. Okay, so if you are not getting the advantage of the spatial locality, definitely this large block size will lead to more conflict and will increase the miss rate. But if you are having the spatial locality advantage, definitely the miss rate will be reduced. And one disadvantage of this large block size is that since when a miss happens, you are going to load the data from the main memory to the cache. So if the block size was 1, means if the block size was having one word, you just need to load only one word from the memory. But right now, if the block size is large, suppose the block size is 4, means if a particular block is having 4 words, you need to load all the 4 words from the memory to the cache. So this will consume more time compared to the previous one. So that is another disadvantage. And the time required to load the missing block into the cache is known as miss penalty. And this miss penalty will be more in the case of large block size methods. Okay, and the thing is that if the adjacent words in the blocks that is being fetched right now is not accessed, means if the spatial locality is not giving the advantage, then the effort of fetching this is a wastage. Okay, so a block size, if you are having a large block size, it is an advantage in a way if it uses the spatial locality advantage. Otherwise it will increase the miss rate, as well as it will increase the miss penalty. Now we will see uh, a direct mapped cache itself. So what it means by direct map cache, you are going to have a set, and in that set a single block. So here also you are using the same concept. You are having a particular set, and inside that particular set a single block, but the block size is a 4-word block, which means that a block is having 4 words inside it. Now as the size of the cache is limited, in this example you are taking a 8-word cache, so you can maximum have only 8 words. Even though you are using the direct map cache, in this direct map cache you are using a block of size 4 words, so maximum you can have only 2 blocks. So this will reduce the number of sets to 2, but the overall capacity remains the same. You are having 8 words, but 2 sets. Why? Because a block is of size 4 words. Okay, so altogether 8 words. Okay, now coming to the memory address terms, the first 2 bits are the byte offset, as you have seen earlier. The next 2 bits are known as the block offset. So right now you know that in a block you are going to have 4 words. In order to differentiate this 4 words, you are having a block offset. So in order to differentiate this 4 words inside the block, you are using a block offset of size 2 bits. And in this example you can see that you are having set 1 and set 0. So in order to differentiate that, the set value is a single bit set value, and the tag value is of size 27 bits. Now the data, when the processor gives you a memory address, this data, suppose in this case you are going to set 1, this data will be present in set 1 either in the block offset 0 0, or in the next block offset 0 1 1 0 or 1 1. Okay, so if a hit occurs, if it is a valid cache data, and if the tag values are same, the quality comparator will give you a 1, it is a hit. And in order to take the data, either data will be present in the first word of the block, the second word, or third word, or fourth word. So in order to take the exact data, you will be giving the block offset as the control signal to the multiplexer, and the corresponding data will be taken. Now we'll see an example. Now the memory, the cache field is been given 8000009C. Now if you write it in terms of binary, the byte offset is 00, the block offset is 11, and the set value is 1, and the remaining 27 bits are the tag. So the set value is 1, which means that you are going to the set 1, and from the set 1 the block offset is 1 1. So from the multiplexer will be given with the control signal 1 1, so it will be taking the data from the fourth word. in general you can say that word 0, word 1, word 2, word 3. So this will be taken from word 3. Now this large block size principle is good for the spatial locality, and this can also be given applied in the associative caches. Now as a summary, you can say that the caches are organized as a 2D array, a two-dimensional array. The rows are known as the sets and the columns are known as ways. Okay. Now you are having the valid bit, you are having the tag bits, the data block, a single word in a block or multiple words in a block. That gives you the block size. We have seen the capacity, the block size, the number of blocks, and the value n. Now from the table you can see that if the n value is 1, you can generally say it is a direct mapped cache. In set associative you can have a range, either it might be between 1 or it can be 1 or any value n or the maximum value b. If this n is 1, set associative can also be called as direct map. If n is b, the set associative can also be called as fully associative. So in the case of fully associative, you will be having only single set. In that particular single set, you will be having all the blocks, and we are seeing the example for that. Okay, now the increasing the associativity value n, usually it reduces the miss rate caused by the conflicts. But the disadvantage over there is that in that case you need to have a bigger multiplexer and you need to have more tag comparators. And we are seeing what is the advantage of increasing the block size as well as the disadvantage of increasing the block size. And if you are using a larger block size, if you are taking the advantage of spatial locality, definitely it will reduce the miss rate. But in that case, if you are not getting that spatial locality advantage, definitely that will lead to more conflicts as well as it will increase the miss penalty. And we are seeing the definition for miss penalty. Okay, now in direct map cache, when a new data comes, since in that case you are having a single block in a single set, definitely that block of data has to be replaced. But in the case of set associative, n-way set associative and fully associative cache, you are having more number of blocks inside a set. So if a particular set is full and if a new data has to be loaded to the cache into that particular set, you are having different options. Suppose in a set there are two ways. If n is 2, in a set you are having two ways, either way 0 or way 1. So the new data can be updated either in way 0 or in way 1. Okay, now we are using certain replacement policies based on certain algorithm. Okay, so what data has to be replaced? Okay, in most cases the least recently used replacement policy is being used. It is known as LRU replacement policy. So in a set, which block is being least recently used, that is, in that case you are going to replace the least recently used block with the new block. This is the normal method used. There are other methods. Now we'll explain this with the help of an example. Suppose you are using a two-way set associative cache. You are going to have a extra bit known as use bit, which indicates which way, either way 0 or way 1 within the set was least recently used. Okay, you are using a use bit and which indicates which way in the set. In this example you are taking two way, So you'll be having way0 or way1, and which set is been least recently used, you'll get that indication from the use bit, an extra bit. Okay. Now in set associative caches, you will be having more number of ways. In this example, you are taken two ways. This ways may be 4, 8, etc. So in that case, the tracking is a bit complicated. So again, what normally we'll do is that we'll again divide these groups into two, and that's how you will proceed. Right now, we'll see the replacement policy in a two-way set associative cache. Okay, suppose you are using a multi-way or n-way set associative cache. In that case, suppose you will be having the more number of least recently groups. So among the least recently used groups, you will replace a random block. Okay, that particular policy is known as pseudo LRU, and that is also good, that is also efficient. Now we will see how does this LRU replacement policy works with an example. Now in this example, you are using a 8-word cache, and you are using two-way set associative cache method. Now you are using an LRU replacement algorithm. So you can see you can see a program at the left side. So you are loading the contents from three locations. The first instruction, it is being loaded from the location 4, the second from 24, the third from 54, and the thing is that all the three locations can only map to set 1. Okay, now you are having two ways in set 1. So the maximum possibility over here is that you can load two datas from two addresses, but the equation, sorry, in the program you can see there are three locations. Okay, so first the data from 04 location will be loaded. In this case it is being loaded to way 0. When you are going to execute the next instruction, the data from the location 24 is being loaded to way 1. Now the third instruction comes, where we want to load the data from the location 54, and this 54 is having an option. Either it can go and update the way 0, in which the data from 04 is being present, or it can go to the way 1, where the data from 24 is being present. And right now, since you are using the replacement algorithm LRU, let's see how that particular concept works. Okay, the same diagram. So you can see for both the ways, way 0 and way 1, you are having the valid bit V, and you are having an extra bit known as use bit U. Okay, so initially in the instruction, the first data is being taken from the address 04. Now this data will be loaded to the way 0. So the data from the memory location 04 is being loaded into way 0 of set 1. And as I said earlier, all the three locations can only get updated to the set 1. Okay, now the second instruction is being executed. The data, it points to memory 24 location, and that is being loaded to way 1 of the set 1. Now you can see, after loading both the values, the way 0 and after that way 1, the use bit is being mentioned as 0. So what it means is that the use bit is 0, which means that the way 0 is the least recently used. So initially you are loaded way 0 with the memory from the address location 04, though that was first used. In the second instruction, from the the data was being loaded from the location 24, and that has been updated in way 1. So in both the cases, which one was recently used? The data from 24. The least recently used is the data from 04. So the use bit is been updated as 0, which means that way 0 is the least recently used. The most recently used is way 1, the data from 24. Why? Because that is the order in which the instruction is being written. Now the third instruction comes. Okay, the third instruction says that you are going to load the value data from the address location 54. So as you have seen, you can see that the u value is 0, which means that you can replace the data in way 0. So in the second diagram you can see that now the data from the address location 54 is being loaded to way 0. Okay, now the cache contains the data from the address location 24 as well as 54. You have replaced the data from 01, 04. Now you can see, now you updated the new value. Now what happens to the use bit? The things has been changed. Now among these two data, the least recently used data is from way 1. So the use bit gets updated with the value 1, saying that now way 1 is the least recently used. And if you are going to replace the next data, definitely the way 1 will be replaced. Okay, so as a part of self-study, you'll have to study about the multi-level caches and what are the techniques used to reduce the miss rate. And coming to the write policies, which we already seen in the part 1. Okay, the when we are going to when the processor want to write something into the memory, first the control circuitry checks the cache. If it is a cache miss, if it is not present in the cache, what happens is that that data will be fetched from the main memory into the cache, and the appropriate word in the cache block is updated or written. Okay, now if it is a cache hit, which means that the data is present in the cache block, the data will be written into the cache. Okay, and there are two ways in which you can classify the cache write policies. It can be either write through or write back. Okay, so there are two write policies. The first one is the write through cache policy, in which when the data is returned to the cache, simultaneously that data will also be updated in the main memory. So that is what it means by write through cache. So when the processor want to write anything into the memory, the cache will be updated simultaneously. That data will also be updated in the main memory. And coming to the write back policy, in that case, when the processor want to write anything into the memory, the things will be updated in the cache. It will be only updated in the cache, and you are having some bits to notify that, and only when this particular data from the cache is being replaced with a new data, only at that point the corresponding memory address will be updated with the new value. Okay, so only when that particular cache data is being moved from the cache, only at that point you are going to update the memory. Okay, that is known as a write back policy, and this is how it works. So associated with the each cache block, you are having a bit known as dirty bit. Okay, so when the cache block is being updated with a, if the processor is going to write anything into the that particular cache block, so what it means is that initially you are taking the data from the memory and loaded into the cache, and now the processor is going to update that particular memory location. Okay, so if that location in the cache is being getting updated, then the d bit, the dirty bit, will get updated as 1, otherwise it will be 0. If it is 0, what it means is that nothing, no updations has happened in that particular data. Okay, now when this cache data is going to get replaced with a new location. In that case, this particular cache block, we will be checking the dirty bit. If that is 1, means that the data has been updated by the processor, so that data will have to be updated in the main memory, otherwise you will leave as such. Okay, so in the part 2 we are seeing the set associative mapping as well as the fully associative, and we are seeing the we are seeing the replacement algorithm and the write policies. In the coming sessions we will see the concept of virtual memory. Thank you.